Hi, everyone. Welcome to Consciousness Incorporated, our episode 3. My name's Adam Vasquez, and my co-host,
Denise Kohnke.
coming to you from good old Wisconsin, and I'm coming from you, the DC area. And we got a lot of really good things to talk about. You know, each week we have these, try to do these on Thursdays at noon. And each week we talk about how consciousness connects with business and in that intersection. And, you know, when we say, again, consciousness, we're not talking about just ESG at that sort of surface level. We're talking about a deep understanding on quantum physics and astrophysics and metaphysics and spirituality,
all the physics,
all the cool physics, and how do we become alchemists in our own lives to create our own, you know, three-dimensional reality through our thoughts.
And that's kind of the topic here today. It's about yes, it's business, and it's about applying business principles to your own life. However, what do we all pursue? Happiness. We're gonna piece that apart a bit from a business perspective, applying these tools we have, and you know, maybe you can come out of this with an idea of what makes you happy. Possibly.
Well, and with that is you're finding your true value, connecting that value. We talked about it. The title of this episode is Panning for Value, and you know what does that really mean? It's a bit of a almost like gold mining. It's a sifting process, and gold being the purest metal, and that is a good symbol of your higher self and your higher being in this incarnation. So really, all those talents, everything that we were given to in this incarnation so that we could achieve our higher purpose and impact the world and ourselves and grow. So going through that process, just like mining for gold, is getting all this debris and stuff out of there so you can find the purity of things. And that purity is the real value, right?
Exactly.
So talking about purity and value, wow, us being in the consulting industry, there's a bit of a scathing article from Washington Post, right? The scandals and hypocrisy behind McKinsey's sterling reputation. And before we jump into this, Denise, I'll give a quick background for those who don't know who McKinsey and Company are.
Yes.
You could argue that they really invented. We're also big market inventors here, and we believe in market invention. And you know, you could argue that kind of invented the modern management consulting market. So, you know, Boston Consulting Group could be considered in there. Bain could be in that same grouping, but you know, McKinsey has really been above everybody in those regards. And
they published a lot. I mean, I use lots of McKinsey stuff because they're doing the kind of research that no one else can do because it's so big and broad. Like, we use their consumer decision journey all the time, and it's tried and true. All sorts of, who else can go to 30 countries and afford to do this kind of research and talk about the impact of the internet on how people make decisions, which is really what the consumer decision journey is. And it's brilliant. It's truly brilliant. I interrupted, but
no, you're exactly right. Exactly right. And just from experience, I have hired and been on the client side for McKinsey a few times. I've also interviewed, gotten job offers, have friends in McKinsey.
How was that process?
We'll get into that. We'll get into that. But first, you know, talking about value, you know, McKinsey has really created a perception of value. You know, people have been, obviously they didn't get big the way they were without providing some value. But now, you know, when we get into it's interesting. A lot of people will say to me, Denise, like everything seems to be converging. Like all this, there's like news about something, some new truth or some hidden thing or some scandal. It seems like popping up every day. And, you know, those who aren't following the sort of consciousness journey or not really deep into it may just think like, okay, this is part of the fourth turning, which is a great book by Neil Howell talking about how generations evolve and we're in winters like seasons and we're at the end of a 80-year cycle. So everything's converging, and we have to burn down the old to build the new. Or they're just saying that the internet is causing more truth than ever. But the reality is, as we shift into a higher dimension or a higher density from a consciousness as on this planet, and it's, we get into some more astrophysics here, you can't hide these things anymore. So all in this process, all things are revealed. So we're gonna discover a lot of really cool stuff in this next decade.
Yeah,
everybody,
things are being revealed, and I just want to chime in because I'm not a geek and I'm not an astrologer. Okay, even though I know a little bit about it. And there's many different kinds of astrology too. It's not just the kind that we know in the, we'll call this the West, but there's Eastern versions of this too. And astrology says this is the time everything is converging. Truth will come out, on a worldwide basis. It's like, this is the time people are going to see what's really behind the curtains.
Right.
And so shout out to astrology and astrologers. They're always right. They're never wrong, just like the tarot. But shout out to them because it's coming true. And if, there's a psychological heuristic that, if you buy a black BMWs, you see black BMWs everywhere, right. If you wear a GAP shirt, Gap, there's Gap shirts everywhere. Okay, that's a psychological heuristic because you are noticing, you don't notice, you don't see, it doesn't imprint unless it's relevant. So where was I going with this?
Yeah, well, just on a side note on those, on when you see something, right, this is based on the frequencies and vibrations, right?
Yes. Thank you. So it's not that, astrology is presenting me with a presumption or presenting us with presumptions. And then we feel like, oh, we're seeing it everywhere because we're told this and now we're focusing on it. Or we're creating our own truths based on selective memory and selective input. It's not that. Don't think it's that. And if you're a cynic and you say, well, it's that, I challenge you because when you watch this for like several decades, you kind of go, wow, this is actually, call it creepy, call it a form of personification because it is.
Yeah.
The world works by personification, and this is the highest order personification that you can get.
Yep.
So call it what you want, but it's an interesting tool.
Yeah. I mean, we could keep going deeper, and that's another topic we definitely want to cover. Is just about how this reality, all it is a bunch of our thoughts merged together in history and in our DNA that created this sort of three-dimensional reality through a social construct system, which is like I don't know if I understand all of that, but we'll try to demystify it as best as we can. But so let's jump into it. So McKinsey talking about value, right? So let's get into the article about McKinsey. Go ahead, Denise.
Oh, I was going to just quote some lines from the article because it is freaking scathing. Let's see.
And real quickly, this is in relation to a new book. It's investigative reporters. And I apologize, Walt and Michael, but it's Walt Bogdanich and Michael Forsyth. So, and it's worth looking up. I mean, I've read it. I can confirm and not confirm some of this stuff for sure. Certainly. But let's get into it. So let's talk about those quotes, Denise.
Well, I haven't read the book, to be fair. And
I have not read the book either. Yeah,
to be fair, I have not read the book, but this is in the Washington Post. And it is McKinsey claims to serve 90 of the world's 100 largest companies, in addition to prominent governments and institutions. Okay, yeah. portraying itself as a values-driven organization dedicated to creating positive, enduring change in the world, they kind of pull that apart. And okay, that's fine. It goes on to talk about unsavory work, using the word unsavory, which I thought was, a little out there to call a company unsavory. Like, by whose norms? By whose norms?
Yeah,
and that goes back to all the culture stuff we talked about, because unsavory is cultural. If you talk to the wealthiest people in the world, they would not call these tactics unsavory at all. They would
Denise,
talk about it beneficially.
And Denise, anyone who's conscious, like really conscious, not just, at that surface level, can see through this, right? Because we know there's bias all over this article, personal biases, all of that, right?
Yeah.
So they may just have a bone to pick because they just don't like other people making money.
Pretty good.
Read a couple quotes, please.
Yeah, more quotes. McKinsey's culture of secrecy, a process they describe akin to chasing shadows to unearth conflicts of interest, corruption, hypocrisy, and strategic blunders that read like a prosecutor's indictment. Okay, let's tear that apart. I'm sorry. How many? They got 30,000 employees around the world.
Literally, it's about every developed country or emerging market they have an office or a group of people, for sure.
There's an adage in the ad agency business is, if you have, let's say you have one tourism client, you're a tourism agency. If you have two, that might be a conflict of interest. If you have three, you're a specialist in tourism. Okay, they have many companies, many people, many processes, many systems that are all designed to support capitalism. That whole, we're only going to do this for good. Yeah, that's a PR spin that has no relevancy, because as you work with good clients, good cultural, you also work with bad clients. If you're working with 90% of the clients on the earth,
they're not
influencing people like us who read their stuff all the time. The problem is that, okay, it's the game. These guys are master players of the game, and the game is capitalism at any cost. It is efficiency and creating shareholder value at every cost. That's the game. And if anybody's going to play the game better than any other person in the entire world or any other company, it's McKinsey.
Yep.
So they counsel people on playing the game. Do you think they could play the game pretty well themselves and take that to heart? So I think that maybe...
And they're a legacy business. I mean, these guys have been around, and gals been around this business. I'm not sure how long they've been around.
Like
I should know
60,
that.
100 years old or
60
something
plus
like that.
years. So right. So they've gone through. They have successfully bridged each one of those versions of capitalism we discussed in episode 1. Right.
Right.
Whether they bridge this new one, it's going to be hard if they fundamentally don't change things, but we'll see.
Right. But it's very curious to me that the Washington Post would, and the person reading it they bought the organizing concept of this book, The Hidden Influence of the World's Most Powerful Consulting Firm. Okay, they bought, and maybe they do a fantastic job of peeling the onion and telling the story. But I'm like, I can't get over the fact that it is wrought with misappropriation of words that are not binary, but words that are unsavory, words that, actually have emotional punch to them, words that have very different kinds of meaning, crappy post, I think.
Well,
Crappy post for the Washington Post.
Let's talk about the McKinsey business model, because I have a unique perspective on it working with them. And so, McKinsey, you have to respect where they are regardless. I do believe they're obsolete and they're kind of fading. They kind of crested in their sort of shininess, because the reality is, in their business model, they're so large now that they have to find profit and efficiencies. So they can't really deliver the value prop that they sell anymore, right? Because you used to go to McKinsey because you'd want something differentiated, some new insight. The best minds in business go there. Like, that was the original draw. And they created a system too. I mean, if you think about their system in general, like when any new person going to McKinsey, you don't go to McKinsey to stay at McKinsey. You go to McKinsey, you stay there for 2 years. Yeah, it's usually 2 years. It's an absolute grind. And you usually spin off, but you spin off usually as a chief strategy officer or a chief financial officer or someone in the executive C-suite in a Fortune 500, right? And that's a great path. I mean, you think about that, because you really are eating dirt for those 2 years. You don't see anybody. You're traveling 75% of the time.
Kind of like being a financier on Wall Street.
Yeah, it is true. They grind you, right? They grind. Get all of that blood out of you, right? And that is an old model of apprenticeship and grinding. And I think everybody's got to do their grind time, right? Because that's how you learn, and there's time for that. But there's also they've created, the McKinsey Way, which is a good book. I think anyone who's in consulting should read the McKinsey Way. And the McKinsey Way was really, it's a book about how they do things and their models and everything else. What they're really good about doing is having a think tank in the middle, which turns into McKinsey Quarterly now, and really spreading it through their consultants, but using junior consultants with senior partners, right? So the senior partners are very expensive, and the junior, or just the partners and the associates are like, they get paid $75 an hour or $75,000 a year, and they're billing out $500,000 a year, right? So it's just this big cash cow in the profitability. But that's, and that's the model, right? In anybody who's familiar with the consulting model, you can't be too top heavy. You need to be almost like an isosceles triangle.
Yeah, I think that's when you were solicited by McKinsey. They pay more now because the article does reference you can start at $250,000 a year, maybe, and then you can maybe pull in like more than $1 million. But those more than $1 million, there are people at McKinsey making $30 million. Come on. And I don't have those exact numbers, but I can say, so this was back in the 2000s. So putting it today's dollars, like 150 maybe, but you're living in New York City, and 150K does not go far in New York City. You're living with roommates in a studio, right? So you still live an intern life, even with a 6-figure salary. And the other part is, they only hire, it's funny talking about values. Now, this is where I definitely differ from McKinsey's strategy. And this is why I think it's based on an old model, and they're kind of obsolete. They're just walking the green mile, and it's going to be a slow burn down to the bottom at this point. And why is because two things. They don't have the senior talent there anymore. That's the brand, because most of the talent leaves and goes corporate. Right. And they're incentivized to rehire themselves because they bought off the McKinsey and all of that persona. So a lot of these people that leave, they go back and hire McKinsey also because they can't get fired by hiring McKinsey. It's like the old IBM adage, never got fired for hiring IBM, right? Right. So which shows you how powerful a brand really is above anything. Sales isn't as important as a brand, right? Because it's different. You've got to introduce yourself in selling
where when you're like a McKinsey, they come to you and they already know who you are and either there. And that's a big difference, right? So what they look for is they look for tall, good looking people, very articulate, young.
Which is why they called you.
Yeah. Thank you, I guess. So they, that's my Leo rising, Denise. So, I'm a Scorpio with a Leo rising. You guys can figure that one out. Go look it up. So when we think about that, their playbook is hire. We're not going to hire the smartest people. We're going to hire the smartest, best looking people because we know the psychology of that, and tall because they can influence people very quickly. And it shows that they get that confirmation of bias, right? Where somebody is like, oh, I expect somebody to be good looking and smart in the A student, athlete, star person of the college or the university or the high school, all of that, right? And what that does is you don't end up hiring the best.
Okay, I have a question for you. What about the restaurant that hires wait staff and host people to look good? Like, okay, everybody's got to have black hair. Everybody wears skinny black. Like, what about that? Is that?
Booz Allen, Accenture, these other consulting agencies have playbooks as well with like what suits you wear, and they're kind of falling out of fashion. What about the restaurateur?
Or what about
in restaurants? And I know Apple got
there's
its
lots
thing.
of companies that kind of do that.
What they do, and they don't like to say it because it's an HR disaster, right? I mean, I think I was told I was 20. I was 28 years old, I believe, that when I was going in after grad school, because I worked in between grad school and undergrad, because I actually don't know how anybody can go straight to grad school and add any value to their team because they have no experience, like none, like to bring to grad school. I feel like you have to have a work experience. But side conversation. And even now with YouTube and other channels, I don't even know if grad school is even relevant anymore, because you're not getting what we're talking about in any of those schools. So that's another conversation. But what I was going with is I was almost too old to go to McKinsey. And they told me that. Listen, Adam, you're kind of on the aging out at this age class, and I usually look young for my age, and I'm blessed with that. But like that's the kind of mentality.
But that mentality is everywhere.
I mean, it's in our DNA. It's in our DNA. It's systemic, just like the idea of racism is. And that's the thing. It's all systemic. It's all systemic, right? I mean, like my last name, Vasquez. I've been told when I meet somebody in person for the first time in the past, many times, it's not just once, with good people saying, "Oh, I was expecting a 5 foot tall Mexican, and I'm 6'3", almost 6'4". And if you ever meet my dad, he's 6'8", blonde hair, blue eyes. So that doesn't match that stereotype very well. And so it's unexpected. And so what I mean by that is McKinsey's has its shine. It's a lot of brand, but they really let their core service deteriorate. And I'm not here to judge and I think anything that judges somebody, honestly, is wrong because it's not conscious. Because on the other side of the veil, like Denise, on the other side of the veil, when we're at our higher selves and we're looking down in the souls and the incarnations that we have, there's no judgment. No. That is the biggest misconception that religion has created in the world. There is no heaven or hell. It's just
neither
love.
here nor there for the universe. They don't have positive and negative.
It's all love. Yeah, you've got to come into this experience to experience that polarity, right? So it's all love, and there's no judgment, and it's all God or the universe experiencing itself. That means the people that wrote this article there's no judgment on them. The people that may be doing this in McKinsey, there's no judgment on them because there's no judgment. It's a human constructed thing in this dimensional reality, which we need to move beyond. So anyways, it's sad that we still have a group of individuals. It's fading because we're all coming to a convergence point, but there's judgment, and that judgment needs to end. We're not trying to judge McKinsey or the other. In fact, you're defending them, right, Denise?
I am defending them.
Even though I think it is
they're
too.
Probably
right?
scumbags according to my own personal values, but I defend them because they're playing a bigger game and they're winning.
Well, I can tell you
a bigger game.
I can tell you in 2 different companies where I hired them to do some strategy research, some market landscaping, some market research, just understanding the industry landscape, total addressable markets, that kind of stuff, right? And the first one, I thought it was very genuine, unique research for a lot of automotive trends and things like that. And then I hired a different team. Actually, the team was the next place I went to in my corporate role. They were already hired. And it was a different team. So I had nothing to do with hiring this next team, and they were fine, just very kind of junior and bit green. But I saw the same research that I paid for, the exact same research, not even an iteration. I mean, it was about a year apart. So the research was relevant. So I know, and this is of them about being profitable in economies of scale. I know they take this research, they make it generic, and it goes to the sort of hub of the central intelligence and goes to anybody else because part of their central research. I understand why they do that. That's leverage.
Well, they're making Toyotas. They're not making custom built cars.
Right.
They're not making Rolls Royces. They're making Toyotas. It's,
yeah.
Is that an issue?
Well,
do we not use information that we have gathered through the years and repurposed it because it is relevant?
Right.
Everybody does.
And it's okay. I mean, we just need to make sure we're not bringing the past forward that needs to die. And it was an untruth, a distortion forward, right? That's the key. So deciphering what's a limiting belief versus a promoting belief, for lack of a better term, right?
Which is part of my problem with all of research, is because it's backwards. And you're taking, I see it every single day where someone takes some sort of insight or fact, to 2 different things, from 2006, and then bases assumptions for 2028 on this 2006 fact or insight. Right. Wrong. That's just poor strategic process, according to me.
Yeah, well, and the research when a CEO from an industry says, I want to be number one, but I want to know what all the other people are doing, and we're just going to copy that. What are the best practices? And best practices are status quo plays. That's like, I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like like, not saying best practices aren't good. They are good, but that's going to keep you up with the Joneses. That's not going to move the industry forward, right? So if you're trying to move forward, and most researchers are not capable, and it's almost the practice of research itself, and they're not capable of identifying the sort of open spaces, which we get into a lot, and we get into land. But
I like to think that we're futurists, and when we do research, it is a snapshot. We go through the due diligence and the best practice, or whatever you want, of doing computer research, desk research, it's often called, where we're looking at trends from the past. We're looking at what has been done. We're looking at what we can glean for context in what we do moving forward, because there is no time like the present to figure out what the next step is going to be, because you are not necessarily doing the same thing. You are doing adjacent possibilities for what's going to be the next thing. You're looking at okay, if it's going this way in this direction, where else can it go? Because where else it goes is where not just innovation is, but invention is. So if you want to invent, you can't invent on the same, arrow to say, I'm inventing in this way, but I'm just going to do it better. Doing it better, that's the death knell of any idea. Oh, our product is a better quality product. Death knell.
It's like make a better mousetrap, right?
Yeah, people have their needs met with the banged up old product, so they don't necessarily need a better version of that. They need a more convenient version of that. They need a simpler version of that. It's the adjacent possibilities that create invention, not a best practice continuum.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Absolutely. And this is my bigger problem with industry analysts in general.
Yes.
These companies go to industry analysts to figure out the future of their industry, and all the industry analysts are doing are telling you what the industry leaders are doing, which isn't the future of the industry, right? So, I mean, I don't.
Yeah, it's.
I think they have their place. I think they have their place, but their place is telling you what everybody else is doing, not where it is going. Right?
Big difference.
All right.
Big difference. And what we do, I don't even know if we ever introduced ourselves as a business, but what we do is look at invention as opposed to innovation. So innovators, they're awesome, but they tend not to be inventors who actually create new markets, that actually excel the innovation, that actually lay new vision and new foundation and actually go down the path. And we help people see that potential invention as a differentiation for the set, the adjacency. And then we show them the path. We create the path, and then we create the mile markers. It's like, how do you know you're going down the right path? Well, mile marker 1, mile marker 2. We create the mile markers for that. So
and those mile markers, if you're not hitting them, then you might be off the road, or you might have found a shortcut, or you maybe that's it. I think the whole point is just in any planning, strategic planning, or anything nowadays, you can't. The further you go out, the more the inaccuracies increase, right? So, and it is an agile process. So you're trying to approach a framework where we get going back to the researchers and companies like McKinsey, and not bashing them, but they represent the old legacy thinking. It's a snapshot. It doesn't include consciousness coming to the table, which always changes things, by the way. Then nobody can seem to predict it, even though we know it exists, right? So,
well, I think it changes things because there's a lot of mass at lower consciousness.
Well, that's where most people are, unfortunately. That's where society is today in many ways. Right?
And so when someone actually breaks out by raising their consciousness, then it's like, oh, what is this new thing?
And then they look for answers on the surface, right? They look for answers on the surface. Oh, it was this marketing campaign, or it was this, or it was that, right? It's they hired salespeople that did this. No, there's a real belief system under the covers that you really can't see, and that's we talk about.
If you can tap it, that's the slipstream. That's the flow state for a business.
And usually the entrepreneurs themselves, the CEOs, don't really know how to disseminate this thinking on a mass scale, because what happens to companies once the founder CEO leaves, the visionary leaves, they go to become a safe. Look at Apple. Okay. Let's just look at Apple. And I'm not throwing stones. Apple is wonderful. I love Apple. Steve Jobs was, read his book, never met the guy, don't know him. He controversial in some ways, but he clearly understood how to tap the universal consciousness, quantum field, all of that stuff, right?
Clearly.
and like really well. The challenge was it kind of all stayed with him in Wozniak in many ways, or that class, that initial class, and then it slowly eroded. And you know, bless him, and he's still with us, just in a different frequency, right? Different vibe.
Here today.
It's a different vibration. The rest of the organization didn't really quite understand it, because if you look what the moves they're making now, they're iterative moves that are not like big pushes forward, sort of bet the company type of things. And it was never betting the company for Steve, right? It was, this is where we have to go, betting the company. Right. If we don't do this, I'll bet you we lose, we'll disappear. Yeah. So it was riskier to stay where it was versus where it needed to go, if that makes sense.
I read it this week and I don't know where I read it, and I'm going to have to search for it. But the quote that I read this week, or the insight that I read this week, is that companies who are conservative make 2 big mistakes a year. Companies that are not conservative and risky make 2 big mistakes a year.
So I'd rather make 2 big mistakes and get a breakthrough than 2 big mistakes and still be dealing with the same challenge.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Because the conservative mistakes are going to go backwards because that's where they live. Yeah. And you know, the other mistakes are going to go forward, but you've probably learned a little something about, you know, what works going forward. And you probably have a lot of other stuff going forward.
Well, regardless, you know, it's hard to say. I'm not trying to say this as a whole, and there's no absolutes in anything. But if you look at most Fortune 500 companies, they're finance maintenance folks, right? Yeah. And they're kind of have to be, because they've got a bunch of shareholder money, and this is why shareholder capitalism is dying right now, because it can't compete against this new model. It just can't. And shareholders are important. People that give you your money, you have to make them part of the team, and you have to find ways to get them back their ROI for sure. I mean, everybody who participates in the new model gets their value in a karmic capitalism model. I think the difference is, in a karmic model, CEOs, they know that it's their responsibility to keep making major progress, not just buying their shares back, which to increase their stock price. Which,
I just wrote a thing for something I can't tell you about. But I just wrote a thing. I'll tell you about it later. But I just wrote a thing about CEOs and leadership, and so many companies are run by managers and not leaders. Leaders look forward, they inspire, they pull people along, they create new things, they're creationists. Managers, no diss, need managers, obviously completely different skill set though.
Yeah, completely.
I mean, it is,
you need operators, you need both.
Or momentary looking. It is more engaging with individual metrics, personal metrics, that's, you know, company metric, KPIs, you know, all the metrics. And it's not that the CEO doesn't care about them, but the eyes of a CEO are facing forward. And that's a very, very different mindset. So I look at anytime I see a CEO which was a CFO, I went, they're done.
Yeah, well, the business is in maintenance mode, right? They're going to squeeze out profits and buy our shares back and make our, you know. So I will say this, you know, it's and I'm forgetting where I heard this, and it wasn't me, but a story I heard is a gentleman who was, you know, at his first day in the job, was asking people what they did in the office, you know, hey, what do you do? What do you do? And goes up to the CEO and asks the CEO, what do you do? And you know what the CEO's response was? The CEO's response was to make sure you have a job in 5 years from now, 10 years from now, and make sure you have opportunities 5 to 10 years from now. Because that's the point, right? We, you know, as CEOs, you need to be looking at what's next and many CEOs say they do this, but I can tell you with working
No, they
with
don't.
hundreds of CEOs,
Hundreds.
there,
I have hundreds too.
yeah, there's really, I would say two, maybe I'll add a third, but it's kind of like 2.5 types of CEOs. You either have a maintenance CEO or you have a growth CEO. And the half CEO are like the turnaround CEOs, which are kind of like a little bit of a hybrid, but they're there for short-term cost cutting. They're not really looking at long-term projections, that kind of stuff. Traditionally, turnaround CEOs are more cost-cutting financial people versus actual. They're not going to redirect to a great future, generally speaking.
No.
Now there are that can, of course, and there's always exceptions. But you got to ask yourself, what do you have in that business? And if you're a growth-oriented person, you do not want to be in an operational CEO's business because there's just no place for you to go. There's
nowhere to go.
And
I often wonder if those people plant trees.
Yeah, I mean,
seriously,
you need
conservatives plant trees, because if you have a short-term mentality and about turning profit in 2 years or 1 year or 3 quarters or whatever the frick, do you plant trees at all? Like, because you're not going to benefit from those trees. But in 30 years or 10 years, those trees are going to be something special.
Yeah. Well, it's looking at the time horizon. It's like Michael Saylor, who has been controversial in the past. He runs a local business here in DC, MicroStrategy. It's a publicly traded global company. And they went, if you're not familiar with Michael Saylor and MicroStrategy, they were really the first big corporation to really buy into Bitcoin, right? And Bitcoin is, I don't know what it's trading today, but it was right around 20,000 yesterday. And 6 months ago, it was like 65,000. So it's definitely like all equities, or it's not an equity, it's an asset. Do not confuse the two. And that's what most people do. But so as an asset, it's dropped. You could argue it's the leading indicator of assets dropping. I think real estate's definitely on the cusp and cresting right now. But his point was, if your time horizon's like a year, I look like an idiot. But if you're following my time horizon of 10 years, where Bitcoin's price can be from $1 million to 5 million, and he's one of the largest holders of Bitcoin, then suddenly they're geniuses.
Visionaries. Right? I call them visionaries.
Yeah. And so, I mean, I'm a big believer in Bitcoin, and for many reasons, especially it's freeing our wealth from
blockchain in general.
Blockchain in general.
I think a lot of people
decentralized. Yeah.
Yes. Sure. Look at Bitcoin as blockchain and as Bitcoin, but they're two separate things.
It uses blockchain technology and is a bit of the OG in the space. But it's still early. We're so early in that process, right? And it's so exciting because it is the first technological tool that can allow us to, it's a trust tool. There's so many, you don't need middlemen and women anymore. You don't need a lot of legal stuff. You don't need so much stuff because anyway.
We should do a whole episode on blockchain and its implications.
And I think that's a great idea.
That's something that we should do pretty early, because mostly you know a lot about it. Yeah. We've gone completely
we have gone and we followed the rabbit hole. And so let's get back. So we talk about value. McKinsey started off with, you go way back 60 plus years, there was probably a handful, and there was McKinsey, and they were able to project their value and understand their value and how they got their value and purpose. And any company that's this size, you're kind of on the right track for your talents and purpose and all that intersecting.
But now, what about people?
Yeah, well, people make businesses because businesses are just people, right? So there's just a collection of abundant souls. So let's get into how to find yourself in this process so that you can provide value for people, right? For other people
and for yourself.
Yeah, well, that's the best. That's the reward, right? Yeah.
If you backfill from okay, I'm going to call it enlightenment, but the step before that, I think, is happiness. And everybody says, oh, I just want to be happy. I'm not happy. If you back up and go in the opposite direction, there will be a formula and a process that will get you there. We might have actually
let's
made
you want to
our
go
own.
let's go through it. Let's go through it.
Through it.
So Denise mapped this out. I added a few little tweaks, but I'm going to share this on the screen here, and let's see if we can get it going. There we go.
Yeah, I made it look like one of those things in a PowerPoint that you can.
Right. So I will. So let's. I'm just going to eliminate our faces real quickly here. And Denise, why don't you walk through the value journey and finding your own personal power?
Yeah.
Really.
I mean, last week I worked on, and this week I'm working on value props a lot. And so the concept of a value prop is kind of what, in a business term, what people value. Okay, well, what if you are the people? What if you're the prospect as an individual? What if you are the person that has to communicate whether you're giving yourself value or not? This is how you get there based on business principles. You know, everybody says in every religion, know thyself. You've heard it, know thyself. You can't get there from here unless you're really honest with who you are. And I'm going down. This is a SWOT here. Who you are, what your strengths are, be honest with your weaknesses, what opportunities you might have. I mean, I'm talking about putting this on a piece of paper on a wall. These are little Post-it notes. This is a mechanical job here. What your fears are, what do you fear, and what trends internally are affecting you, internally and externally. I usually use trends, and fears is actually threats in the SWOT analysis. And I always add an extra T for trends, because companies have internal trends. Profits are going up, or, revenue is going south. And you have trends too within your own life and how you think. What are those trends?
And why? And Denise, let's talk about. We call it a SWOT. Let's talk about the SWOT, because I think this is actually the model for businesses too. Because we talked about this, the idea of threats, and threats are, perceived. They most of the time they're false evidence appearing real. So let's just call what it is.
Yeah.
And call it a fear. And let's talk about that. I'd like us to kind of dig into each one of those areas, not like fully. This is a whole other hour and a half we could spend here. But when you talk about strengths, what do you mean by strengths?
It's like, what do you do that is God-given, and
your talents, your born personality talents. Yeah, it's in the stars, right?
Yeah. I'm a good writer. I've always been a good writer. I've always liked writing. Writing has always been a thing for me. So it is a strength in how I can put down words in context, way better than talking them through.
Well,
so
and
a talent, that's a talent that I have. And frankly, that talent, and it's coming up, makes me happy. Makes me happy.
You're an excellent writer. But also talents. I mean, your other given gifts, like if you're tall, or you're athletic, or you're good looking, or you're articulate, or
you're kind.
That is definitely a talent. Yeah, you're empathic.
Empathetic. What are your strengths? What do you got to work with here?
Yeah, exactly.
And
good hair. That's one. You have good hair.
You do have good hair. Did you say I have good hair?
Yeah, you have good hair too. Everybody's got good hair.
You said you had good hair.
I have good hair. Thank you.
Okay.
I was born with good hair. No, but I'm saying what you do too. You have beautiful hair. But I'm just saying, like, I know there's a bunch of my friends that wish they had good hair and they have no hair. So, but that's not one of their strengths. And I just mean strengths are like when you start pulling it out like a SWOT, or like the old SWOT analysis, you think of like these sort of mechanical sort of like skill sets, but it's bigger than that, right?
For sure, it's bigger than that. When you're talking about you as a human on this earth, it's way bigger than that.
Well, so like weaknesses, because I always see weaknesses as the other side of the coin from your strengths. Like
Often in
overusing
business,
strengths can be a weakness, right?
yeah, often in business, when you're doing this with a company, 9 out of 10 times, something that is a strength is also a weakness.
Right.
And you just think about that, because it is, if that is true, that is a foundation for evolution. That is an internal foundation for making it better. It's like, okay, we've mastered making it better. If you have it as a strength and a weakness, normally it's like, what's your next step is what you ask.
Well, so like for me, other than the hair, and some people you can comment, that's okay. Say, Adam, you don't have gray hair. That's okay. I won't take offense. I'm just joking here. But for a seriousness, optimism is one of my strengths. And however, it can be a weakness in many ways. In meaning, if you're over optimistic, you'll ignore certain current states of reality. And there's good reasons to ignore current states of reality in a quantum physics level, right? If we're going to move past it, we don't want to keep staying there. However, it can also make people feel like you don't have any sense of reality. So it can get people to not want to follow you or believe in your vision, because they're like, oh, Adam sees everything in bright, buttercups and roses and rainbows, right? So, but I see myself as a very firm fixed on reality. So that's how I know how to manipulate it, right? So, but people that aren't aware of this conversation we have may not. But so that's an example.
We are high level manipulators.
Yeah, that's another example. So
masters.
Let's talk about opportunities. So what do you mean by opportunities? How do you like uncover an opportunity for yourself, like, or identify one? That's a better way of saying it.
When I do strategic planning with businesses, normally there's a who you have in your group kind of is, and I don't want to say garbage in, garbage out, because that is, people aren't garbage, and I don't mean that, but the input that you put into this is equal to the input you get out of it. Some people are good at it. Some people are not good at it. Now, the opportunities thing is really, really hard for people to wrap their heads around. Normally, they're really good on strengths and weaknesses. Weaknesses is always longer than the strengths, longer list. They get to opportunities and they freeze up, because it requires you to, and opportunities, strengths are internal, weaknesses are internal, opportunities are internal and external. So what opportunities do you have internally? Like, okay, one of my weaknesses, one of Denise's weaknesses is, I got a bum leg. Okay, I have a bad hip. I need to strengthen that. And strengthening that is an opportunity for me. You could look at that as an opportunity to be a better person, better health, all that sort of stuff. And then that opportunity might lead to backpacking like I used to do, or something like that. So opportunities are also external, in that you look around and you go, I could do that. Or, oh, this is happening over here, and I would add value to that. That's an opportunity. It's connecting the dots for yourself. I think that, like, my history with Merit was, I don't want to call it a freelancer, but I was one of the contract employees. And the opportunity to work full time here was something that Adam and I both spotted, because it was, it made sense for Merit and for me, and then we put it together. But most people think opportunities are business-based, and I would say they're not. They are lifestyle-based. What's your lifestyle opportunity?
Yeah, and I just wanted to add to that is, like, what excites you, right?
Yeah.
So
what do you like?
It's that combination, right, of just like really look to almost to your inner child. There's some real soul searching, like what motivates you and what does not.
Yeah.
And I feel like everybody, once they ask, and and you almost got to get out of your logical mind when you do that, right?
Yeah.
You almost just got to almost scan all the opportunities in front of you, almost like a scan, and be like, don't feel anything, excited and scared.
Okay.
If this happened, oh, that's probably something good. It scares me and I'm excited about it. Maybe I should do this. Or there's a challenge, right? That, like you said, an opportunity to overcome a weakness that you've been wanting to, because that will build confidence for you to do more. So, right?
Yeah. And it happens to people whose kids grow up all the time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when you have a child, when you have children, your life obviously profoundly changes.
Mm-hmm.
And you take a little bit of yourself and you put it into them. And when you get married, you take a little bit of yourself and you put it into the other person. That's what makes those relationships work. Mm-hmm. And then on a day-to-day, on the daily, when you don't have that, either children, which is a short-term, I got to do this, I got to send them off to school, I got to open that backpack. When you don't have that anymore, and when you don't have a mate anymore, what do? You kind of go back to, frankly, you go back to what you started with. You go back to being, at the hardwire level of who am I and what am I? And children and husbands and wives are wonderful influences. And I'm not saying don't do that. I'm saying that the greatest times of my life. But when you don't have it, then what do you become? And you have to kind of think about this one, because okay, maybe I'm going back to a lot of the spiritual stuff. That's where I'm going. That was really important in my life before all that other marriage and children. Not that it went away, but it was way more important in my life before than it was then. But now it's emerging again.
So it's really about following and reading your gut and listening to your higher self and to who you are. Like, I think everybody knows when they're acting in a higher self versus a lower self, right? You kind of know it. And fear puts you in your lower self. So that going into fears, let's talk about fears. So, how do you explain? Because this is something we talked about, threats on a business level. I still feel like it's just fears. Like, we just need to change it to SWOT and just be done with it, right?
So shall it be done. We've just changed it.
So no more
all that SWOT. We shall do moving forward.
SWOT is for a third density or fourth dimension, whichever one you believe in, the old shareholder capitalism model. Now we're talking about SWOTs. And so let's talk about fears and why we called it fear. I'll jump in on that answer. I'll answer my own question, because, honestly, fear, as we talk about fear, it will make you, it allows you to call it out take it out of the shadows, right? Bring it into the light. So then you can, because our, fear, we are really good at fear, like really good. Like, everybody is really good. Like, this is something this planet is really good at. Fear,
really good at, because that's how marketing and capitalism and all the messages that you get every day from media, and it's a grand proportion of those are fear-based, or telling you should be afraid of something.
And somebody will say, well, we just need to, like, risk management people. We just need to manage the risk, all this risk. But if they really understood consciousness, they would understand that by documenting risk, you're actually creating that reality and bringing that into your field and creating that possibility. And more you focus on it, the higher probability it becomes. So it's like threats. Well, if you see that threat or that fear, that's really a fear. Well, what's at that fear? Uncover that fear, because that's got layers, right? Yes. It's got layers. It's like, could be like, well, I don't want to fail. Fear of failure. Well, that's a very high level. Why are you afraid to fail? Well, because of this, because of this, because of this, because of this. And it turns out it's probably because, you know, potentially when you were a child, you saw your parents struggle with money and it gets down to that. But that's a gift, because that fear, that is one of the catalysts you have to overcome, because that's the point. That's the point of this whole thing. So now you make it, you shine the light on it. It can't hide anymore. And then everyone on if you're doing this in an individual, you have to know your fears, and you need to overcome all of them, because that's the point. And then when you're as a team, how powerful is that when we know everybody's doubt and fears and we can overcome it together, collaboratively, not in a way, because most people are afraid to share their fears because they're afraid somebody will use it against them. And that's a fear. Why? Right.
Yes.
So what would be a fear? Another fear? What would be some other good fears?
A fear can be like you're coming from a place of you grew up in a household of perfection, and you're afraid to fail. That could be a fear that you need to overcome, because there is no failure. There is no failure. The universe doesn't have failure as part of its vibrational DNA.
Right.
And, you know, you knowing this in a business setting, knowing what your team is held up by as individuals, if you can do it, if you can have like a kumbaya session, if you go off and do team dynamics and you're doing zip lining and, you know, falling backwards on them or something like that, which establishes trust. You know, one of those things that you need to talk about together is what wires your fear.
Right.
Because wiring your fear changes the decisions that you make.
Well, and those are the self-limiting beliefs, which compounded are obstacles for the company, right?
Self-limiting beliefs that are obstacles for the company. Underline.
Right. Well, so you think about that, right? It's from a sales perspective, let's use this sales as an example. Say you're your business development salesperson and you're high ticket sales, big business, like $1 million or anywhere from a few $100,000 to millions of dollars in sales that you're doing. Now, what if your limiting belief is that as a child, you were told by others that you weren't worthy, you weren't good enough, you weren't, and you go out, or you weren't worth the money. Like your parents, you would see all these other kids have these wonderful things, new clothes or whatever else, and you would go out, you would ask your parents for those things, and your parents would say, well, you're not good enough to deserve those things, or something terrible like that. And it happens. Okay. But whatever it is,
terrible parents,
whatever it is, you have that limiting belief that you're not worthy of that kind of level of money, right? And attracting that kind of income into your life. Well, what's going to happen? You're going to always struggle with sales or big sales. You know, you might be able to sell the small stuff or the low level stuff, but you're never going to be able to sell the big stuff. And you're just going to keep going from job to job to job until you eliminate that fear or self-limiting belief that you may not even realize is there, because it's locked in tight in your subconscious mind. And it goes for anything. It can go from, being a writer, and you've been told by other people and teachers that you look up to and respect. There's so many teachers out there that will tell people they're bad or they're not good enough. I had teachers telling me that I was stupid or I, for one reason or another. And I just know that's not true. So I've worked past that. But you think about what that does, and it gets locked in tight on a subconscious level. So those are you got to work through it. So let's talk about trends real quickly, because I think everybody gets that. But then how, like, when we get back into this flow, like the techniques and framing it in, in context of vibration. I want to go there next. So,
okay, I want to do happy quantum pride in
oh yeah,
yourself.
sorry. Yes, please. Just let's go there, and then we'll shift. So trends real quickly.
Oh, yeah.
Market trends, industry trends,
Mega trends.
mega trends, things that you're seeing, like, oh, I like Bitcoin. That's exciting. That's an emerging market. I have talents. I know technology really well. I get, blockchain. I like mathematics. I like da 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 da. Yes, that would probably be a good industry or key trend that you might want to, hook your buggy to, so to speak, right?
Yeah. Last week we talked about flow, and the guy who's the father of flow, Mihaly, and I won't do his last name. That's his first name. But Mihaly talks about flow, and he used his research as a basis. Well, a lot of time managers right now are taking that research and applying it to every day. The research was set a clock, have something go off every 2 hours, 1 hour, and then write down from a scale to 1 to 5 or 1 to 10, whatever you want. Be mindful of that. What you're doing and how it makes you happy. So I'm writing away. I'm in a writing zone. Alarm goes off. I call that an 8. Then you look back, on your day, your days. I am at the gym. What do you call that? I am arguing with someone over something. What do you call that? I am opening emails. What do you call that? And then you will get an idea of what makes you happy in a quantified way. And it's so then you start prioritizing things in your life based on, okay, I'm the happiest when I'm entertaining my family. All right, I need to entertain my family more, maybe, or I need to find ways to entertain others because that makes me happy. So that's Happy Quant. Do it this week. Try it out. Let us know. Pride in yourself. I also believe that when you look back at your life right now, everybody's life stage changes, obviously. So you're looking back at my life when I'm 12 is different than looking back at my life when I'm 30. Looking back at your life and wondering, what were you proud of? What were you personally, not I'm proud of, a daughter or a son who's doing something like that. That's not yours necessarily. It's like, what are you proud of that mattered to you? It changes all the time, but write it down. Write down what you're proud of, and factor that in what you do.
Well, and that's great if you're into
doing stuff they don't have any pride in moving forward.
Well, and that's great for if you do gratitude journaling, right? And that's, we like fears. You said it earlier. Like when we do this exercise on a corporate level, like the strengths are like maybe like 5, but nobody has any problem with listing dozens of fears or threats, right? And it's because we focus on what's not working rather than what is working.
Mm-hmm. Really good point. Okay. Then you've done your SWOT.
Mm-hmm.
You've rolled around in yourself. You know thyself. Then you need to, the next arrow goes frame in context of vibration. We talked a lot about vibration and this vibrating cone here on how, as you move up the color spectrum of the cone, the feelings that you have change. And there's a certain area where creativity happens. If you make it to the top, that's enlightenment. If you're at the bottom and you're feeling guilt or shame, survival is being questioned, that's a different vibe. So frame what you just did in the context of vibration.
And and techniques, we added this techniques. These are just various ways of getting there, right? To help the process. They're almost tools. Think of them as tools, techniques, and everybody's got different ones. And this is not an exhaustive list. So there are other ways, whatever it allows you to get that sort of flow, to get into that mindfulness, that peaceful place where you can really think clearly from a higher vibratory sense and help you move up that ladder, right? Through meditation, hypnotherapy, subconscious programming. I put that in the same bucket.
Yeah.
Exercise, you got mindfulness. Have you ever done a float tank, Denise?
Yes.
They're incredible, right? I mean, the sensory deprivation tanks, it's saltwater tanks. People have not done it.
It's cool, but like it gets my hair wet. And then it's like,
yeah, you have like a weird slime all over you from
I know. It's like, all right,
water.
I'm in seawater. It just got my hair full of, it's like, so for me, it doesn't balance, like the fact that I've got to like get all dressed again and then have that experience.
And for those, and for those brave souls that are really into this, they can go their vision quest with psychotropics, right? Peyote, mescaline, all that stuff.
If I could go buy that at Walgreens,
MDMA, no,
I'd be there immediately.
Yeah. Well, it'll be a day. I think eventually, as our consciousness evolves, people will realize these are actually tools for unlocking your potential and such. And there's some really good books on this, just from everything. And there's a lot of good things on, say, Netflix and other parts. Some really good stuff.
Fantastic Fungi. Go watch that.
But the mysticism or the Nancy Reagan just say no to drugs was really just political and misguided on all of these aspects. Now, I'm not saying I condone drug use or anything like that. What I'm saying is using it responsibly in a way you can have an accelerated opening of your mind in incredible ways. So,
and that has been used like not just decades, but millennia.
Yeah, millennia. I mean, there's some beliefs out there that the mushroom was what brought consciousness to our ape minds, actually. So
I'm really into mushrooms.
So it was an actual, it's actually two organisms working together, and we actually have those in ourselves that allows us to connect to consciousness, which is an interesting theory. I'm not sure, but I definitely see it as a connection for sure.
It's the largest plant because it's all connected. Yeah. All those mushrooms are underground.
It is, and we're all connected. So either way, we're connected to it all. So so keep moving. So your place, we find your place. We're here.
We're here, but your place is your place in the world, your place in your community, your place in your home where you feel most comfortable. And look, it's based on all those things. That's fifth of swat, the puffery, whatever that word is with the new F in it.
The swap HP. We'll put the happy quant HQP pride. Happy quant pride.
We got to figure out a new acronym. Your place is really important because if you're not in your place, you can't access all that and create flow.
Right.
Flow is a fantastic flag on a hill. Sometimes you need like flags on a hill. If I could just capture this, it's not way out in the distance, but if I can just get to this flag on the hill, that will serve you very well for the rest of your journey. Flow is a great place to do that. How can I get flow in where I am, what I do, whether that flow is just meditation based or whether that flow, like a lot of the flow scientists are talking about, like 20 years ago, now they're integrating like the cool stuff, but they say it's like mastery. It's really more about mastery. And I get that, but I think it's bigger than that.
And we talk about strategic flow versus tactical flow, right? So, I mean, we're talking about strategic flow as a broader, like moving along to finding our purpose, but we're going to have tactical moments of flow bursts, sprints all throughout the day. It can be multiple times during the day, but there's a bigger flow, right? That's being aligned the river. Somebody, this is a comment made by another expert I follow on this space. He's talking about it's not just about going with the river. You want to become the river.
Become the river. Be the ball.
It's like, be the ball. Exactly. Thank you.
You have to be the ball.
No. Yes, absolutely. So let's pursue challenges. So then you're pursuing challenges in your place, in the flow state. It's funny, challenges. So the one thing, the realization here is you have two choices. Challenges are either going to find you when you're not in flow, or you're going to find them when you're in flow. And
that's really good.
I don't know.
Cut that out as a snippet.
I don't know if about you guys or listening, and you, Denise, but I like being in flow with the universe with my challenges, because then those challenges become opportunities where when you're not in flow, and those challenges become just these pushes you deeper down the vibrationary cone into scared fear. And it's just a totally different way of living. And we all know people that do one or the other.
Yeah. And, people go, oh, well, I've mastered this. The concept of mastery is, okay, I'm doing this automatically. I have automatic, I'm riding a bike.
Yeah.
All right. Well, there are ways to ride a bike better. And you need to find those in order to fuel the flow, because the flow will go away and it will become boredom.
Mm-hmm.
It will become, it's like, oh, I don't want to do that. I've done that 100 times. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about upping the ante.
Well, in the day,
ante upping.
And the day you're done with challenges is the day you're dead in this life, because there's nothing else to learn. If you've already learned everything you're going to learn out of this lifespan, but remember, we're infinite beings having a 3D experience. And so those 3D experiences are all about challenges, so that we can find our higher self, and we can elevate ourselves at a soul level to a higher level, because there's multiple levels even at the higher self level, because you're not already maxed out, because this is all about evolution of your higher self, which is exciting if you really think about it that way. So then if you stop challenges, then the game's over. You exit the game. It's like, okay, well, I've won this game, so I need to reincarnate in another life at a different challenges, because I need new challenges, because I can't get them out of this lifespan. So that's something, are you ready to check out?
Yeah.
Some people are, and that's okay. I mean, but hopefully by the time I'm in my 90s or 100, I'll be like, yeah, I did everything. I'm good for it's time for the next avatar. It's time for the next personality. Let's do this again.
Yeah. There's a whole lot of talk about purpose, organizations of purpose. Purpose is a really kind of, it's almost coming a cliche for those of us who watch these things, but it's new to some people in that it's like, it's the answer to why am I here?
Right.
And it's never internal. It is always, frankly, an external thing, in that, what am I delivering to the world, to my community? What am I delivering outside of my body? What am I delivering outside of my business? So we talk about Patagonia all the time, and love. We have talked about how much we love them. But Patagonia's purpose is to save the earth. That's the only stakeholder they have. Save the earth. Okay, that's a concept of purpose. Everything they do is a machine, a reason why, a way to make money to save the earth. So, what's your purpose? That'll be revealed to you, I think. If you do these other steps, I believe in my heart of hearts, it will be revealed to you. And because I don't think you can make it up and say, oh, my purpose is to save like inner city children from cars that go fast. Okay, fine. But that's not a real purpose. Find your purpose. It'll come.
Well, yeah, and you can't like, it's like finding the penny. We talked about visualizing the penny, and I do have a good visualization meditation about finding some of this stuff that it's a simple
Oh,
thing we'll
good.
do at the
You
end.
taking that to this week? Good.
I'll take it this week for sure,
Okay.
and it's just a simple thing, but it's very powerful. But like the finding the purpose, I don't want people to get stressed out about finding their purpose, because that's wrong. You don't want to be stressed. It should be natural, and like anything when you're in flow, it's like, wow, that was so ridiculously easy. I feel like I just stole it from the universe. You know what I mean? It's like I literally feel like I stole it from the universe. And when you're in flow and it's like working perfectly, right? And so when you find your purpose in the similar way, you'll just wake up one morning and you'll have a knowingness. Now, some people are born with a knowingness, like not what they specifically can articulate the purpose. They just know the direction. There's like a pull, right, towards a direction of things, of challenges or wants and desires, so to speak. And that's okay. But it is also okay. I think everybody needs to understand this. Our primary purpose is to experience catalysts so that we can come back to our higher self. That's the true purpose. So like, if you do that and you do that, selling, trading and selling Rolex watches on the internet, somebody else may say, oh, that's not a high purpose. You're just selling watches. What purpose is that? It's okay. That's just the means to get the catalyst that you need to learn the things you were destined to learn in this lifetime, because you programmed it prior. You set it up. That's your choice. That's the free choice part of this, which is exceptional. You can find how you want to articulate or express your purpose, right? In different ways. But and it's okay. But just being, you think about individuals. This is a topic that comes up. I've seen it in my family and such. And, my mom was a stay-at-home mom, and all she wanted was just to raise a family and just be there with a family, right? My dad's more career driven and everything else. And when you ask people, they'll say, this is an old social construct. I definitely don't prescribe to this. Oh, that's not a real job. Being a housemaker is not a real job, right? It's actually harder than going to the office, so to speak. But that is okay if that's your purpose, to raise a great family. And that's the point, right? Because actually our kids choose us for the catalyst they need. They can get through us the best way, because at a higher self, we know the fastest path. And that's why we set up certain things, pillars or mile markers in our lifetime that we may not be aware of because of the veil of forgetfulness. Because then it would be an easy game. We'd have the cheat codes, and it's just, okay, well, I know how, and it would be boring. Right. And that doesn't matter if you're from, a star seed that is being incarnated on this planet just to raise other people's vibration, or you're in this density and you're tied to this planet, and this is where you're getting your soul to a higher density. Either way, there's purpose in all of that. And it's okay.
And I talk about purpose in a very graphic way, using, if you can think about a ladder, not a ladder, steps, like a staircase. And the staircase keeps going up, and at each step on the staircase, something else happens, and it's always taking you higher. It's always taking you from a marketing point of view. You can even do a messaging matrix based on this, and I have done that. You can do a media matrix based on this, and I have done that, like what messages go in what media. But it always takes you higher. And the point is to get up there, climb the stairs, climb the stairs for you. And if you climb the stairs for you, I guarantee you're helping other people climb the stairs too.
Yes.
Because hermits generally aren't happy, or they are terribly happy, and that's why they're a hermit. I don't know, but climb the stairs. That's what you're supposed to do in this life.
And the cool thing about all of that is when you're operating at a high vibration, you may not see it, but you're raising everybody's vibration around you. Even if you don't even talk to them, even if you just walk through a grocery store, everybody in that grocery store is going to be raised their vibration. They're going to have better. They may not understand why they're feeling better. They just know it'll happen. So that's the exciting part about it all. You could just focus on raising your vibration and just be, and you're doing your part to raise everybody's consciousess. Which
and
is
as a person who was trained to read auras, I can do it. The higher you go on that scale, the bigger the aura. So you can affect people really far away. And auras and energy, perhaps I will talk about a parlor trick that I know where you can actually feel them in other people. And that's why people vibe, you know? That's why you walk in a room and here's the party.
So another topic we'll need to cover, Denise, is how to do some of this stuff, because I definitely, it's like, other than your miming skills, teach us how to mime, but we'll also teach us how to read auras and other things. I just think it's fascinating because it is. And I've done some of the stuff Denise has taught me and done some other research on it. And one of the things is if you just sort of stare at a tree and a leaf, you can kind of see that sort of a white silhouette around it. It's real thin, and that's the beginning of an aura. You get more clearer picture of it, but you can actually look and see that. So
you should do your meditation now because we're.
Oh yeah, we should. Okay, so I think the point, Denise, is there anything you want to say before we jump in, and I'll say a few words also before we jump into this quick meditation.
It's been a good chat, and I hope people.
It's been a good chat.
It's been a good chat, and I hope if anybody is recommending, the whole series, subscribe and all that, and tell your friends. I think this one's a good one to recommend as a first one to try.
Yeah. So find that gold. So what I'm going to do is as a sifting process. So the good news about all of this is you're not on your own. Even if you're alone in the room, you have everyone around you, not see them, their energy, your spirit guides, all of that is there. Your higher consciousness, which your ancestors, which are part of that spirit group, the soul group, everything. So you have help. And this is, I'm going to guide you through just how to ask for help in discovering this. And I'll say this. So when you ask the questions, you may get an answer right away, but generally what happens is you'll be in the shower or about ready to go to bed or in some sort of flow state. And then the answer will hit you like a lightning bolt. And you'll be like, wow, where did that come from? Well, you got your answer. And this is not only a great technique for what we're going to do here, discovering your strengths and other things, but it will also serve you for other decisions and other even strategic planning. And we'll get into that. How do you tap into the Akashic record for that? So what we're doing is we're tapping into spirits, to the quantum field, infinite intelligence, Akashic records, whatever you want to go by, to get the answers that you need. And here's the difference. When it's something your ego pops in, it's like kind of forced. When it comes from something higher, your muse, whatever we want to call it, two things. It will be instant, and it will be a knowingness to it. There will be a knowingness, and it's hard to explain. It's almost like in your right here, you feel it, like an excitement or something like that. It just feels there's a purity to it. Almost like, waking up being excited about getting a present or giving a gift or something like that. Just like
kind of like being thirsty outside and 100 degrees and somebody gives you a lemonade. That's
exactly.
Oh my God, that's
wow. Yeah. Okay, so it's going to be quick. We're going to do some breaths again. We're going to go through. I'll have us do. We'll do 2 breaths, just or actually we'll do 3 breaths just as we get this through. Again, we're going to breathe in slowly. We're going to hold it for 3 seconds, and then we're going to breathe out for 3 seconds, basically 3 by 3 by 3 is if you want it to go from a numbers perspective, but you'll feel you want to expand your lungs, expand your belly, abdomen all the way. And so let's get started. So everyone, please close their eyes, and we're going to take a deep breath. Now we're going to hold it and relax. Exhale. Again, deep breath. Expand all those parts. Breathe in the light. See your body illuminating. All that light coming in from the top of your head throughout your body. And exhale. One more on your own. And exhale. And now I want you to ask the question. It could be any question in your head, but let's ask this question. What is my top strength, universe? What is my top strength? What is my top strength? What am I best at? What am I best at? What is my top strength? And you can keep repeating that in your head or out loud, whatever's easiest for you. And then say thank you and exhale. And do one more breath. Hold it and breathe out and open up your eyes and know that the answer is going to come. And every one of us who's doing this, if you're in the future or in the past, you'll do this and you'll realize, and you can ask any question and it will come to you. And when it does, just keep strengthening this muscle. And the key is just getting into a very calm and relaxed sort of alpha state, in that sort of meditative state. And then just asking the question, and you can ask for help. It's a great way of getting all of that. And it is a form of prayer for sure. Yeah. But the difference is in a prayer, you're almost begging. Not begging is the wrong, but you're kind of needy.
It's the weird needy thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And the universe doesn't like needy because it doesn't understand. But you want to be in an abundance place, be relaxed, be calm, and just ask. And it's a good time. You can do it before you go to bed is a good time to do this also, or in the morning when you first wake up. But when you're closest to your dream state, that's actually the most effective time. We've used it for coming up with the name for Consciousness Incorporated, the whole market invention process. A lot of that was created through this. Some other really cool stuff we're doing that we'll, unveil from a business side in a different future podcast. But I hope it works for you, and I know it will. So please don't give up on it. And I wish everybody the best. So I will say this, my last thoughts. Thank you, Denise. I'm grateful. Everyone who listened.
Thank you, Adam.
Grateful for
Thank you, everyone.
Don't forget to subscribe and share with your friends, because we need to raise the vibration of consciousness for all of us in business. And we need to change this reality to the new higher vibration reality. And then this is how we get the elusive heaven on earth, so to speak. And last thing to consider is just let go. Don't force any of this stuff. Just, if you don't know what your purpose is, don't stress out about it. The value, it'll find you. And if you don't know, ask the universe, and you
shall receive.
You will receive. You will. But make sure you feel abundant when you're doing that, not scared, but feeling like you already have it. And that it's ask. And it's funny, actually, the Book of Thomas, just on a side note before we hang up here.
I was going to say, you're selling the car like 3-4 times now.
It was pulled out of it is ask and feel and you shall receive. It's not just ask and you shall receive, but the feeling part was removed because that's the secret ingredient. And again, if you want to get in contact with us, please, we got myself and Denise. We can send us emails. You can ping us on LinkedIn. If you want to read our books, we'd be grateful. I think they can really help you and your businesses. And we're grateful for all of your support. So thank you very much, Denise. Thanks again. And everyone, have a fabulous day. We'll see you next week. Bye, everyone.